Hi, I'm Kevin Flint, the General Manager of Oasis Engineering in New Zealand, and today I'm going to show you how to re-kit an Oasis ball valve. Okay, to re-kit an Oasis ball valve, what you need is the ball valve. You need a seal kit, an original seal kit from Oasis Engineering, and we recommend that you have the instructions. We send these out with all the seal kits. But if you haven't got one, then download one from our website www.oasisngv.com. This explains exactly how to re-kit a valve, and it also gives you the sizes and torques of all the equipment and caps that you need. So once you've got the seal kit and the re-kitting instructions, you get the valve ready and you get all your tools ready. In this case we're going to be doing a 1/2 inch valve, so for this I have a 13mm spanner to remove the stem nut. I also have a socket to remove the cap, and I've also got a couple of pliers that I'll need, a pick which helps me get the seats out, small screwdriver. This is an Oasis ball valve removal tool, and I'll show you how we use that. And we also recommend that you get ready some silicone grease. We use Roll Sapphire silicone grease, but any grease suitable for O-rings will suffice. And we also use some C-stock grease, and we use that on the threads on the cap. It's not entirely necessary, but we do recommend that you use it. So to re-kit the valve, the first thing we do is remove the stem nut, and we can just take a spanner and remove it as such. There is then a spring washer that comes off, and then you can take the handle off. The handle is a push fit onto the stem, so it can be tight, so you may need to wiggle it to pull it off like that. You then take the valve goes into a vise, you grip the valve in the vise, and you use a suitable torque wrench or spanner to remove the cap. The cap will just unscrew and will come off like that. Inside we now have the balls and the seats. The seats can be pulled out like that, and the ball needs to be orientated into its closed position so that the flat of the stem is parallel with the end of the valve. And you can use a Oasis removal tool or a pen or something similar and just push the ball out like that. We can then remove the stem, and to remove the stem, put your finger inside the valve to catch it and just give it a push, and the stem will just push through like that. The last thing to remove is the seat, and the seat we use a pick. So you go in to the seat, you just get behind the seat and you just slowly edge your way around and pull the seat out. Alternatively, you can go in from the back and just try and tap the seat out, or if you don't have a pick, use a small screwdriver, go in from the back and just gently work your way around. Eventually the seat will work out. One thing to note, on our smaller ball valves, this is a 3/8 ball valve, but on our 3/8 and 1/4 inch ball valve, the stem will not come out until the seat has been removed. So on the small ball valves, less than 1/2 inch, you have to remove the seat first, and then the stem will come out, and you need to put the stem in before you put the seat in. Going back to our 1/2 inch valve, the last thing you remove is the gland, and pair along those pliers that will just pull out. So now we have unkitted the ball valve, and we can remove the O-ring off the cap, and it is now in all its component bits. So then you take your new service kit, and the parts are exactly the same as the parts that we've just removed. So the first thing is to take the O-ring, put some grease on it as I've mentioned, and pop the O-ring over the cap as such. Another thing to note, on our larger valves, 3/4 and above, this is a 1 inch cap, we have 2 O-rings fitted to the cap. And the 2 O-rings are an O-ring and a backup. This is in cross section. So what this is showing is a round O-ring and then the backup which has a curve. And the O-ring should sit into the curve. So when you put the backup onto the cap, make sure that it is in the correct orientation, and then pop the O-ring on and push the O-ring against the backup. So the backup O-ring is square, the main O-ring is round. Again, going back to our half-inch valve, once we put the O-ring onto the cap, the next thing we do is put the seat back in, so the seat can pop in as such. We take the stem you put into the body and pop it through the hole. Once it's through the hole, take a pair of pliers, hold the stem, not on the thread, on the sides, give it a pull, and you will feel and hear it click into place. You then orientate the stem so that it is in the correct position to take the ball. So the flat is horizontal with the end of the valve. You then take the ball and the slot fits onto the end of the stem. So you need to line the slot up, and you take the ball and you drop it into the ball valve. If, as here, it doesn't go in first time, you just wiggle the ball, wiggle the stem, and eventually it will fall into place. Once it's in place, turn the stem through 90 degrees into the open position, and that will ensure the ball doesn't fall out. We then take the second seat, make sure that the correct side is against the ball, the beveled side, pop that into the ball valve, take the cap, screw the cap on the thread of the cap, put some of the anti-seize, it's always a good thing to do. Screw in the cap, take the torque wrench and torque to the required setting. If you don't have a torque wrench, then make sure the cap is very, very tight onto the body. It needs to be very tight, so you make sure you tighten the cap up in a vise. And the last thing we do is put the handle on. So we start off with the gland goes over the stem, which pushes into position. Then we put the handle on. As I mentioned earlier, the handle can be very tight on the stem, it is a push fit. So a little trick is to use the ring of a spanner or a socket, place it over the stem and then just knock it into place just to get it started on the stem, and then the handle will wiggle down into place. Place a spring washer over the stem, place a nut over the stem, screw the nut down, take the torque wrench and torque the nut into place. The torque on the half-inch is 6 Newton meters. I can torque it with my little finger. So make sure, if you haven't got a torque wrench, that it's not too tight. It should just be nipped tight. Check that the operation is all working as it should be, and there we have a newly rekitted ball valve.